Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this gathering. It's always beautiful to be together as a community, to sit in this circle with one another, to see old friends and new, whether we've been here countless times or this is our first. You're always welcome, and there's always a place for you in this circle. We gather as people who, first and foremost, welcome one another just as they are. And so, just as you are this morning, whether you're sleepy or wide awake, you're welcome here in all the diversity of our human experience. We're going to come here in stages. We've gotten our bodies here. Yeah. But now the task remains to become fully present, to be here, body, mind, and spirit. And so let's take a few moments to sing our way fully into this circle. Please join me in our gathering words as we speak these words alternately with each other. Some may think love is like a walled garden, to protect and keep foes at bay and encouraging the feeling of being especially privileged. But loving is expansive and leads the way to wider compassion and deeper freedom. Some may think love is like shadows, clouding children's days with fear or confusion. But loving is like sunshine, blessing each other with the warmth of happiness, strength, and connection. Some may think love is divisive, separating friends and enemies, the good from the bad, the holy from the profane. But loving is a bond in a world community, where sincere differences beautify the pattern and where all is claimed as sacred. Some may think love weakens a person's selfhood and blights the growth of resourcefulness. But loving nurtures self-confidence and enriches self-worth. Some may think love is rigid, weak to confront a changing world, and unable to withstand the strength of power and pressure. But loving is pliable and strong, like a young sapling, ever growing with the upward quest for life, as powerful as it is flexible. May our quest be for a love that begets even more love. May our quest be for a love that will outlive each of us. on this morning when we can be together to celebrate the gift of love, to celebrate the gift of family in whatever way we celebrate that and find it. On a day that we can be together as spiritual community, we can join our voices together to strengthen our intentions and to place us in an open and spirit-filled place. Let's share these words together. We are a grateful, open, and attentive people. We are grateful for the presence of a creative spirit within, breathing dreams into our little bit of stardust. We are open to the presence of a compassionate spirit within, rooted in Jesus of Nazareth and ever evolving in the energizing spirit within. May we awaken to all the possibilities that our lives hold and be stirred to grow in the ways of love, peace, and justice. As those who seek courage to create community with one another, we pray, may it be so. And so it is that we light this candle every time we gather, reminding us of the connection we have with the very stuff of the universe, the connection we have with each other, the connection we have with all of humanity and all creation. In this light, we center ourselves. May it live and dwell at the center of our gathering, but also at the center of our lives as we decide what values, what spirit, what connection we place in our center in order to guide us, in order to keep us centered. Well, today's Valentine's Day, and what's Valentine's Day all about? Chocolate? What else? I didn't bring a story about chocolate. I brought a story about love. So it's also Family Day weekend, and so I thought it would be so great to talk about the love we share in our families. And what a lovely time to do that. And I brought one of my favorite stories about that. It's called I'll Always Love You by Peony Lewis. No, you don't need a Kleenex. Well, you might. One morning, hold on, can everyone see? One morning, Alex woke up early and ran downstairs to the kitchen. "I'll make Mum some toast and honey for breakfast," he said. "She'll really like that." Alex reached for the honey bowl and crash! His mum's favorite bowl was now 9 pieces of sticky china. Alex hadn't meant to break it. What would she say? Alex's mum was doing her morning exercises. "Hello, Alex," she said. "Did I hear something break?" "Mum, will you only love me if I'm good?" asked Alex. "I'll always love you," said his mum, and she smiled. Even when I've done something that isn't good?" asked Alex. "I'll still love you," said his mum. "Honest." "What if I have a pillow fight with Joey Bear and all the feathers burst out? Will you still love me?" "I'll always love you, though you must pick up all the feathers." "What if I spill my new paints on baby Pog and she turns green, red, and blue? Will you still love me?" "I'll always love you, though you will have to give her a bath." "What if I forget to close the fridge door and baby Pog pulls everything out? Will you still love me?" "I'll always love you, though there won't be any food for dinner." "What if I pour Grandma Bear's lumpy oatmeal all over my head? Will you still love me?" "I'll always love you, though you will have to eat another bowl of oatmeal. Now, why are you being such a silly bear this morning?" For a few moments, Alex didn't say anything. Then he whispered, "What if I break your favorite honey bowl? Will you still love me?" "You know I'll always love you," said his mom. "Come on, Alex. It must be time for breakfast." So off they went into the kitchen. "Oh no," cried his mom when she saw the 9 pieces of sticky china. "That was my favorite bowl, Alex." "Sorry," said Alex. 2 tears ran down his face. "You said you wouldn't, you said you'd still love me. I love you." "Of course I love you," said Alex's mom, hugging him. "Hey, I've got an idea," shouted Alex, wriggling away from her arms. "What is it?" she asked. "It's a surprise," Alex said, and he ran upstairs to his bedroom. He looked in his toy box, he looked in his closet, he looked under his table, and at last he found what he wanted. He got out his new paints, poured some water into a jelly jar, and swirled his paintbrush around. A little while later, Alex came downstairs again. "Here you are, Mom," he said. "But be careful, the paint's still wet." "I'll be very careful," said his mom, smiling, "because this is going to be my new favorite honey bowl." The end. Do you think they got the honey from the bees? Maybe they did. Bears are pretty smart that way. This story is talking about the love that we can experience in our families. It's the kind of love that loves no matter what. It's love for children, it's love for parents, it's love for grandparents, it's love for everyone. And it's the kind of love that loves even if we sometimes get into a bit of trouble. It's the kind of love that always loves even when we get a bit upset with each other and we raise our voices at each other and we fight with each other, because that happens in all families. In all families it happens. But love, you fight your brothers at your house? Yes, this happens. I know. But you know what? Love in a family is stronger than all those fights, and stronger than all our kind of bad moods, and stronger than breaking a honey bowl, because it's the love that loves no matter what. And it's a wonderful kind of love to celebrate on Valentine's Day today and on Family Day weekend. It's wonderful that we can spend time with each other and share with each other just how much we love each other no matter what, even if we're grumpy. I was grumpy yesterday, so I'm saying this today because I'm hoping my family will still love me.
and if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions and give even my last breath, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. These are words passed down to us from the early first century Christian community. May we find wisdom for our journey.
Our next piece of wisdom comes from a video about the scientific method. I apologize if it's... and it's starting
Control
right now.
Experiment.
It's okay. Technology. It's a bit on the basic side, but it makes the point that I think we need to make this morning. So watch this simple video on the scientific constant method. It's such a fantastic weekend. It's Family Day weekend, it's Valentine's Day, and just 2 days ago, the anniversary of Charles Darwin's birth, which maybe you don't celebrate, but it's a good weekend, especially when you want to talk about love's evolution. Countless times we're learning new things because people doing little or big experiments are discovering new things. This week, the world of astrophysics, you probably heard in the news, was again changed when scientists detected gravitational waves, ripples in the fabric of space and time. And they discovered that for the very first time. And the waves are likely from some enormous cosmological event. They're saying like the collision of two black holes. And what scientists detected were these little minute vibrations, these minute waves picked up by very sensitive equipment that has detected this event that likely happened 1.3 billion years ago. Amazing. Scientists say that what we learn from this discovery could begin a whole new field of discovery and new knowledge. And that's pretty exciting. We're always learning. And what I love about the scientific method is that it's so simple. When you want to test something, we don't change everything and hope that we discover accurate impact of all our changes. We don't just throw all the cards up in the air. We change one thing at a time. If we want to know how to improve our houseplant's growth, we have to change just one thing, one independent variable, the water. We can't change the water, the location, the soil, and all of that all at once. We won't know what is causing the changes. Everything but one thing must remain constant. And that scientific constant method is the basis of all good experimentation, which is great for discovery, but it's also a great metaphor for our lives. We choose what is variable in our life, and we also choose what we mustn't change, what's constant. We have to decide what's at the center of our lives, what's the center of our value system, and what's at the center of our decision-making apparatus. When it comes to making a decision, what are we going to turn to first? What's at the middle? What never changes? What do we hold on to when everything else is swirling? What do we want to hear as the enduring theme of our life? What will be the prevailing constant? Today, when St. Valentine gets his day in the light and our consumer culture makes hay, we might also recognize, though, that at its heart, love is one of those things that we can choose as our constant. Since the tellers of stories started telling the tales, love has been a theme. Love has been a hallmark, not the card company, of what it means to be a person of spirit. And particularly within the Jesus tradition, love has been at the center of stories, of living life according to that example. And really much broader than that, too. Really, all the enduring religions of the world recognize that living a life infused with love is a sign of right relationship. It's a sign of positive living. It's even a sign of sacred presence. Many, in fact, define and name the divine by the very word love. So, a long time ago, early Christian communities were writing to each other. And by early, I mean that after Jesus' death, groups of people started coming together who were inspired by the stories that they were hearing about this teacher named Jesus. And to hear these stories, they had to gather together into communities to kind of test what it was like to live according to these teachings they'd heard taught. So we inherit a letter to one of these communities, one in the city of Corinth, and thus the letter to the Corinthians, that we find in the Bible. And amid whatever challenges and squabbles this community was having, we know they were having them, this letter addresses many of them. In the middle of all of that, we have this teaching, this treatise on love. Now, if you were to go to 3 church weddings, you'd probably hear this at 2 out of the 3 of them. Maybe all 3. We find wisdom in these words. They're meaningful. Many have them memorized. When Charles was reading them, I could see kind of flickers of, oh, I know these words. They've become somewhat of a wedding tradition, so much as that we barely have to ask the bride and groom now what they would like to have read at their wedding. They stress the importance of love, and you can do a whole lot of other stuff, it says. You can be a whole lot of other things. You can know a whole lot, but if you don't have love, none of it really matters. Some are skeptical of putting all our eggs in the basket of love. A whole lot of people who've done a lot of great and amazing things didn't have love in their life. In fact, many of them are likely jerks. And they're still doing just fine. They're rich, they're famous, they're brilliant, their work endures. That might be true. They may not have love or spirituality or any of the other things in their life, and they succeeded. But I want to come back to this, so let's just put a pin in that. Give me 6 more minutes, and we'll get back to that. The second thing that this writing on love gives us is a slightly more concrete description of the character of love. What does love mean? Well, it's one of those words that, you could define with a whole lot of clouds and fluffy hearts. And it's hard to be specific sometimes. And this writing, well, it says it doesn't have to do a whole lot with feelings. It has to do with these actions. Being patient, being kind, being humble, seeking cooperation, offering forgiveness where it's needed, bearing burdens, enduring and hoping with other people. And having details like that is always helpful. It's helpful to say, oh, here's a definition of love. It means doing all of these things. And granted, they're first century examples. They're a bit old, but somehow they're still helpful. It's a bit of a reminder of what love can look like. And it's up to us then to contextualize it. It's up to us to hear that reading from the first century and say, well, in the 21st century, I hear that, and here's how I make that happen in my life. We have to always do that. We have to take whatever wisdom we hear and say, oh, well, here's what it looks like with my particular partner. Here's what it looks like in my group of friends, in my family. What actions and ways of being show them that we love them. That's what we're talking about. And we have to find our own ways of adding to that excellent list that we're given. I guess in some ways that's the work of spiritual depth. That's always the work of spiritual depth. Wrapping our love in the details of our own lives. If love is our constant, what will change in our lives? What can change in our lives and what can't? If love is our constant, what will we learn and how will we change? I want to go back to a bit of science for a minute. I'm inspired when I hear Michael Dowd, author of Evolutionary Christianity, speak. He reminds us that in evolutionary science, one of the things we know is that, like many things that evolve, morality and our understandings of values also have evolved. He explains that what we know of our brains tells us that we don't necessarily need, as those who criticize religion would often say, we don't need some cosmic carrot to make us into good people. We don't need to be constantly chasing this promise, this threat of hell or this promise of heaven to encourage us to behave properly. Dowd reminds us that the impulse to create goodness, to express love, to behave in moral ways is actually instinctual to our species because we're group animals. Love, compassion, care, kindness, consideration emerge because we're social in nature. To understand evolution is to know that we're not all selfish at heart. To understand evolution is to understand that our capacity to love has evolved over time and is still evolving. And thanks to Dowd, a quick look at the parts of our brain and how they've evolved over time can help us think about this. So just a quick little summary of how he and others have talked about this evolution of the human brain. The oldest part of the brain is the very reptilian part, the oldest part right at the base of our brainstem and cerebellum. It's our most basic functions. It's our safety. It's our fight, our flight, our freeze. It's our sustenance, our desire for food. And it's our survival of the species. It's our need for sex and procreation. In the second oldest part of our brain, the limbic system, it was developed as we became more social creatures in the need for social instincts. So our social instincts are here in the limbic system. Our need for kinship, our need for bonding, our need in some way to know what our place in the group is. Are we down here? Are we in the middle? Are we at the top of our status in our group? Those are instinctual desires in us. Those aren't just because we're selfish and we want to work our way up. There's a part of our evolution that is programmed into that limbic part of our brain that says we need to know our standing in our society. The next part of our brain to evolve is the neocortex, which helps us interpret information and signals. It's where we make meaning. It's where we have understanding. It's where we think. It's where we have self-awareness. And the last one to evolve is our prefrontal cortex, which is where we engage in very fine decision-making and logic. If we're going to override the instincts of the other part of the brain, it's going to happen there. It's going to happen in the prefrontal cortex. Now, that's thanks to Michael Dowd and other scientists, obviously, but I suspect that I'm going to take it one step further, as I want to do, because I like just, experimenting. So I suspect that there might be a definition of love in each of these parts of the brain.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. It's our physical instincts that attract us to each other. We need food, we need to be safe, and we're drawn to others for that. But here, in this very oldest part of our brain, is our sex drive. And it's where arousal happens. It's where sexiness, lust, physical instincts that are with us from very early on in life and from very early on in our evolution as humans. It's really how our species survived and survives. And in some ways, it doesn't matter if it's for procreation or not. It doesn't matter what our goal of our sex drive is. Those instincts are there regardless. It's those instincts that draw us to a partner. And this is a certain kind of love, a necessary one, and one that most likely has started every romantic, loving relationship we've experienced. It starts with this. It starts with those just primal feelings. The Greeks didn't have the science, but they had a word for this kind of love, eros, and it's where we get words like erotic, and it's that passionate, sensual desire place. And so love, in that erotic sense, comes from the evolution of our species. There's other kinds of love. And here in the limbic system again, where we talked about being social creatures, we have a desire to be together in groups and to bond with certain members of those groups. And of course, it's all wrapped up in our social conventions and our status. But this is another kind of love. This is a love of contact. This is a love of seeing ourselves in relationship with others, of being part of a group. It's not me against the whole world. It's me with a manageable group of people. Because that's the way I need to understand my world, is with others who I can think with and be with and understand with. It's in this group. It's this kind of love in this part of the brain, I suspect, that has us feeling that kinship, that bond with others, that sense of brotherly and sisterly love, that sense of connection and camaraderie, that sense of friendship. The Greeks didn't know the science, but they knew the word for this kind of love. They called it philia. It reminds me of Philadelphia, which is the city of brotherly love, right? Philia is a Greek word. In the neocortex, maybe love is different again. We think and we have a lot of kinds of, we have a lot of this kind of love, I imagine. It's the love that happens, it happens a lot on paper. Remember, this is the part of the brain, the neocortex, where we do a lot of thinking. It's the kind of love that happens, if I could meet the ideal person, they would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however long our list is. Or maybe it's the kind of love that says, we really need to improve our relationship. Here, I've come up with 5 reasons that we could do with some improvement, and each of these reasons has corresponding examples and a 7-step plan. Oh, that's a kind of love, too. We want to make it better. It's the place that we interpret what happens. We experience something, and our neocortex tells us how to make sense of it. We're self-aware, and we're good. Actually, we're good at self-deception because of this part of the brain. Thanks, neocortex. We can justify just about anything. And we use this part of the brain for every excuse we've ever given in our lives. The love that we find here, I think, probably is rationally explained. It says this love is good for us, isn't it? It's really making my life better because of all these great things it's doing, and let's list them, okay? It's not really our instincts, it's not really our feelings as much as it's the way we want to feel. It's the explanations we come up with for our more instinctual actions. And the Greeks didn't know the science, but they knew a word for this kind of love and this kind of thinking, and the word is pragma, and it doesn't take a lot of brain power in our neocortex to figure out that's the root of the word pragmatism and pragmatic. You're all very relieved that I'm on the last part of the brain. It's like, Chris, geez, what are you doing? Right. The prefrontal cortex is the last part of our brain to evolve. And what love resides here, I wonder? I suspect it's the kind of love that's a value. The kind of love that is a virtue. Something we choose to be about. This is the kind of love we talk about around here an awful lot. Something we choose to be about. This would be the love that requires not only to act... Well, it's the love that says we're going to act with our reptilian brain, with our cerebellum. We're going to act with our limbic system and be all about, status and where we are in the group. But we're not only going to act with those instincts. We're not only going to act with our desire for status or out of our desperation not to be alone. We're not only going to act in a way that simply meets our needs and deceives ourselves into the things that we are and all we need is wrapped up in the person that I've just fallen in love with. We're going to act with more than that. This is the place in our brain where we choose to be patient or kind, even if it isn't instinctual. Because since when, I've never met a person for whom patience was instinct. It's where we choose to be kind and generous, even if it's not in our own gainful interest. This is where we don't rejoice in another's wrongdoing, despite our neocortex at the same time calculating that it could be our opportunity for advancement when someone else screws up. But here in our prefrontal cortex, we say, no, I want to choose to be about more than that. I want to choose to be bigger than that. This is where we choose to hear other viewpoints, despite other parts of our brain saying that the way to social superiority is to be right all the time. The Greeks didn't know the science, but they had a word for it. They called this kind of word agape. The kind of love that is unconditional and selfless, that is about goodwill and values and ethics. So back to an earlier issue that I raised. Sure, it's possible to climb the social ladder, have incredible and brilliant ideas, and promote them and be rich and famous, because we can all do any of those things relying on the instincts that we've gathered through our human evolution. But what's compelling to us in the 21st century is that we can ask ourselves, what will we choose? How then will I live? To be a spiritual person is to challenge merely living life based on instincts we inherit. Because, we're grateful for those instincts. My gosh. All those 4 parts of the brain, granted, it's simplified. I'm not a neuroscientist, but even in this simplified look at the brain, we can be thankful for all those things. Look at how they got our human species to where they are. It did a fine job at helping us survive when making it to adulthood wasn't an easy affair at all. And we still need those instincts, and we use them every day. But we live in a vastly different experience than our ancestors. We are evolving. Love is evolving. And perhaps the way forward as individuals and communities and societies, this way to make an impact on our world and a direction that sets future generations in a positive direction, is to rely on the fact that we have this gift of evolution that gives us the ability to have these kinds of conversations, that gives us the ability to choose how we will live, that we're not paralyzed by what our first thought might be, and we're not trapped by it. Second and third and fourth thoughts are really fantastic because they're the evolution of our brain, our thought system, and our understandings and our values. The ability to place a value and principle at the center of our existence, like this candle is burning here in our center. The ability to do that and say, I will choose to be about this. I will choose to make love my scientific constant. I'll be the control. Love will be the control that I will not change through all the other shifting circumstances of life's grand experiment. We can rejoice in our ability to make change in our lives and in our world, to do not simply what's natural, but what is right, what is good, and acting from the best love that we're able to act from. May love at the center of our lives be a source of joy and hope for us. May it be the way forward for us. May it be the way we together and individually impact this world for the better. And may we work to make it so in so many ways. In the spirit of the musicians, it's a perfect way for us to go from this place. May we all be able to put a little love in our hearts. May that love be the center of our lives, the thing that is constant for each of us, and may we share it with the world in each of our own ways. May we go with that love. Amen. A human spirit, love empowered.